My name is Hannah Preston. I'm 30 years old, and 2 months ago, I accepted a promotion to Seattle without telling my boyfriend. I signed the offer, booked a mover, and went to work the next day like nothing had changed. Then I watched his world start to tilt when he realized I might not be planning to take him with me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. From the outside, my life in Austin looked solid. I'm a software architect at a major tech company just north of downtown. Good salary, interesting problems, free cold brew on tap. Basically, tech nerd heaven. I've been with my boyfriend Lucas for 3 years. He's 28, a marketing manager at a scrappy little startup that believes brand is everything and sleep is optional. We moved in together last year. Same apartment, same routines, same toothbrush cup. For a while, I really thought we were building a life together. Except for Becca. Becca is Lucas's ex-girlfriend from college. They dated for 2 years at UT, broke up when he graduated, and moved for work. That should have been the end of it. Except 8 months ago, she moved to Austin. Total coincidence, Lucas said at the time, dropping onto our couch with a grin and a bag of tacos. Her company transferred her here. Isn't that wild? It's wild, I echoed, forcing a smile as he scrolled through old pictures of the two of them on his phone. Crazy small world. I don't have a problem with people staying friends with their exes, or at least that's what I used to tell myself. The problem with Becca wasn't that she existed, it was that she was always having a crisis. The first time our plans got derailed, we'd had reservations at this tiny Italian place I'd been stalking online for months. I'd put on a dress, done my hair, even worn the uncomfortable heels, the whole effort package. Then Becca called. I watched Lucas's face shift from relaxed to worried as he listened. Hey, breathe, he said, pacing the kitchen. It's okay. No, you're not a failure. Everyone gets overwhelmed at work sometimes. When he hung up, he avoided my eyes. She had a panic attack during a client presentation, he said. She's really shaken up. I should go over there, just for a little while. My lipstick was still wet. Sure, I said slowly. We can reschedule. He kissed my cheek, already grabbing his keys. You're the best. I'll make it up to you, I promise. He didn't. It became a pattern. Dinner plans canceled because Becca needed advice about her toxic manager. Weekend trips cut short because Becca had a family emergency. Movie nights interrupted because Becca was spiraling over something her coworkers said. Always urgent, always fragile, always something that required Lucas to drop everything and rush to her side. He'd come home late, exhausted but oddly energized, like he'd been the hero in some emotional disaster movie. She just doesn't have many people she can trust, he'd explain, rubbing his temples. I know it's a lot, but she's been through things, hon. I can't just abandon her. I'd sit there on the couch, my Netflix queue still paused where we left it, wondering when exactly I'd signed up to share my boyfriend with his ex. For a long time, I questioned whether I was the problem. Maybe I was jealous. Maybe I was controlling. Maybe I'd internalized too many social media posts about healthy boundaries and no contact after breakups, and I wasn't being nuanced enough. But then came the Seattle offer. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and the Texas sun was doing that thing where it makes the parking lot shimmer like a mirage. I was in a meeting room, empty coffee cup in front of me, when my director asked if I could stay behind for a few minutes. My stomach did a quick, anxious flip. No one ever expects good news when a boss says, "Can you hang back?" He closed the door, sat down across from me, and smiled. We're expanding the team in Seattle, he said. We need a senior architect to lead the new cloud initiative up there. You're at the top of the list, Hannah. It'd be a promotion, a raise, stock refresh, the works. For a second, the room went quiet in that thick, unreal way. Seattle, a city I'd only seen in shows, all glass and rain and mountains. We'd need an answer soon, he added. Relocation in 6 weeks. I could hear my own heartbeat. 6 weeks. Fresh start. Dream roll. My first thought, pathetically, instinctively, was of Lucas. Of all the late-night talks where we'd sat on our tiny balcony with cheap wine, saying someday we'd live in another city, explore somewhere new together, be that couple, posting smiling photos in front of unfamiliar skylines. This is everything we talked about, I said that night as we ate takeout on the couch. My hands were still shaking slightly. Senior architect in Seattle. We could start over there. New city, new chapter. I expected him to freeze with his fork midair, then grin and pull me into a hug. He didn't. Instead, he went very still, eyes darting to his phone on the coffee table like it might explode. I can't leave right now, he said. The words landed heavy, like a door closing. I blinked. What do you mean you can't leave? You hate your commute. You complain about your CEO every other day. This is... Becca's barely holding it together as it is, he interrupted. Her anxiety's been awful lately. She needs a stable support system here. I can't just bail on her in the middle of all this. For a moment, I honestly thought I'd misheard him. You can't leave, I repeated slowly, because your ex-girlfriend needs you to be her emotional support animal? He flinched. That's not fair. No, I said, my voice starting to shake. What's not fair is that every time we try to plan anything for us, she texts you that she's falling apart and you run. But this, I pointed toward the unopened laptop where my offer letter waited. This is my career, our future. He sighed, the kind of exhale that says you're being unreasonable. You're making this about jealousy again. I'm not choosing her over you. I'm trying to be there for a friend who doesn't have anyone else. I looked at him, really looked at him. In my mind, I saw a birthday dinner I'd gone to alone because Becca had an anxiety episode. The camping trip we'd cut short because Becca might hurt herself if Lucas didn't come over. The anniversary we'd postponed because Becca's grandmother had allegedly died. Except I'd seen Instagram photos of that same grandmother at a barbecue 2 months later. Lucas, I said quietly, when was the last time you told her no? When was the last time you said, I can't talk right now, I'm with Hannah? He opened his mouth, then closed it. I'm not cutting her out just because you're jealous, he said finally. If you can't understand that I have responsibilities to people who depend on me, maybe you're not ready for this kind of commitment. The words sliced through me. Not ready for commitment. Me, the woman who'd been waiting for 3 years for him to act like he was actually in a committed relationship. I watched him pick up his phone and check it, probably to see if Becca had texted. The blue glow lit up his face, softening the hard edges of his expression. My chest tightened. 3 years of watching him answer her calls in the middle of our dinners. 3 years of being told I was overreacting whenever I asked for basic consideration. 3 years of feeling like the third wheel in my own relationship. And I realized something in that moment that I should have realized a long time ago. I had been asking for permission to be prioritized. Begging, really. Who, I heard myself say, voice suddenly very calm, said you were coming with me anyway? Silence. Lucas stared at me like I'd started speaking another language. What are you talking about? He demanded. We're together, Hannah. We make these decisions as a couple. I laughed, a tiny humorless sound. We make decisions as a couple when you actually act like part of a couple, when you're not sprinting out the door every time Becca sighs too hard over a text. He shook his head. You're twisting this. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. But the next morning, while he showered and got ready for work, I stood at the kitchen counter with my laptop open and my director's email on the screen. My fingers hovered for only a second before I typed. I'd be honored to accept the senior architect position in Seattle. I hit send. The whoosh of the email leaving my outbox felt louder than it should have. In the bathroom, the shower kept running. Somewhere in the apartment, Lucas's phone chimed with a new message. I imagined Becca's name flashing on the screen. I closed the laptop, my heart pounding, and stared at my reflection in the dark window over the sink. Okay, I whispered to myself. If he can't choose you, you'll choose you. That was the moment everything changed. And he had no idea yet. The days after I accepted the Seattle offer were filled with a strange sense of calm. For the first time in months, I felt like I was moving towards something that was mine, a decision I'd made without anyone else's approval or emotional baggage. It was empowering, even if it meant leaving Lucas behind. I didn't tell him I'd accepted the job. Not immediately, at least. There were still too many unresolved things between us, and I didn't want to add to the fire just yet. I'd quietly started packing, planning my move in secret while Lucas remained blissfully unaware. But everything about our dynamic had shifted. As soon as I had made the decision, things at work had gotten easier. There were no more long, exhausting nights of wondering if I was too demanding or if I was asking for too much. I started focusing on the opportunity ahead of me, the promotion, the chance to start over in a city that seemed so different from Austin. The Seattle apartment was in Capitol Hill, surrounded by coffee shops, quirky little bookstores, and skyline views that reminded me of the life I could have if I took this leap. One morning, as I sat in the break room with my coffee, Chloe, my coworker and close friend, came in, her eyes lighting up as she asked, "You've been glowing lately. What's up with you?" I almost laughed at how good it felt to hear that. I hadn't realized how much I'd been holding my breath, waiting for Lucas to finally see me. The me who had her own dreams, her own plans. The me who could decide where she wanted to go without consulting anyone else. Actually, I said, lowering my voice conspiratorially, I've decided to move to Seattle. Chloe's eyes widened. What? Are you serious? That's amazing. When are you leaving? I smiled, but it was a tight smile. In about 6 weeks. I'm pretty sure Lucas is going to lose his mind when he finds out. Chloe raised an eyebrow. Are you telling him? I hesitated. I haven't yet. I'm still figuring out how to bring it up. Chloe nodded knowingly. Girl, just be prepared. He's going to be upset. But if it's your dream, you've got to go for it. I leaned back in my chair, taking a deep breath. I had told myself that I was ready for this, but the nagging feeling in my stomach wouldn't go away. I'd spent so long prioritizing his needs, I had forgotten what it felt like to put my own first. Back at home, things with Lucas were, well, normal. Or at least, it seemed normal. He would come home from work exhausted, but still find time to text Becca, to talk to her, to reassure her. His phone would buzz during dinner, or while we were on the couch watching TV, or sometimes even when we were out on a walk. Becca's really struggling with work right now, he'd say. I should go talk to her. I had stopped trying to argue. I had stopped trying to convince him that we were what mattered. I don't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, I'd let Becca take priority. She had made it clear that no matter what Lucas said, no matter how much he claimed to be just friends with her, she was always going to be the one who came first, and he had let it happen. But as I watched him rush out of the door again one evening, his keys clinking in his hand, I felt something snap inside me. The anger, the frustration, the deep hurt, all of it rushed to the surface in a tidal wave. I sat there, in our shared apartment, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. For 3 years, I'd been waiting for him to choose me, and every time, Becca had won. That night, I went through my closet, picked out the things I wanted to take to Seattle, and started folding them into a suitcase. It wasn't a big suitcase, just enough for a few essentials. I hadn't told him yet, but it felt so right to finally start preparing for me. But there was still one thing I needed to do before everything changed. 2 weeks later, Lucas came home with that familiar glow of excitement in his eyes. He told me about his potential promotion, the one he'd been working toward for months. I smiled and congratulated him, pretending everything was fine. But inside, I felt that old feeling returning, the one where Becca's crises always seemed to arrive at the exact moment Lucas needed to be fully present for us. I was done being patient. That afternoon, as Lucas was on the phone with Becca, no doubt preparing to rush over and help her with her latest emotional breakdown, I realized I was standing at the edge of something huge. I knew this was the right time. I called my director in Seattle and told her I would be accepting the offer. There would be no more waiting, no more asking for permission. This was my life, and if Lucas couldn't see that, then I was ready to move on without him. That night, Lucas stood in front of me, his usual grin plastered on his face, but his eyes were searching mine like he was hoping to find something I couldn't give him anymore. Guess what? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I accepted the Seattle position. His face froze, and he dropped his phone to the counter. Wait, what? I'm moving in 6 weeks, I said. I'll be starting the job in 2 weeks. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. He looked at me like I had slapped him. But we were planning this life together. You can't just... Lucas, I have been planning my life this whole time, I interrupted. You've been too busy making Becca your priority. I need to do something for myself now. His eyes softened with something close to guilt, but then they flickered with anger. You're making me choose. Again, between you and her. No, I said, shaking my head. I'm choosing myself. For the first time in 3 years, I'm choosing me. The room was thick with tension, but I held my ground. I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't asking permission. The decision was made. Later that night, while I packed a few more things, and Lucas lay in bed, his back turned to me, I couldn't help but feel that familiar pang of doubt. Had I done the right thing? It didn't matter. I couldn't live like this anymore. Not as second place. Not as the one left waiting for the attention that never came. I was finally choosing myself. And Lucas? He could choose Becca, but he wasn't going to choose me anymore. The morning I planned to finally tell Lucas, everything arrived with the kind of quiet that feels like the air is holding its breath. He didn't notice. He never did, not when it was about me. Lucas was buzzing around the apartment, half-dressed, half-distracted, pacing between his closet and the bathroom while firing off texts. His phone kept lighting up with notifications, one after another after another. Becca, of course. She's falling apart about her performance review, he muttered as he tied his shoes. She thinks she's going to get fired. I'm heading over there in a bit. I watched from the kitchen, leaning on the counter, coffee cooling in my hands. A familiar scene, a familiar ache. But this time, something inside me was steel. Before Lucas could walk out the door to comfort another woman, I needed him to hear one thing. Lucas, I said quietly, before you go, I need to tell you something important. He paused mid-step, barely glancing up. Can it wait? She's really spiraling right now. My jaw tightened. No, it can't wait. He sighed dramatically, like I'd just asked him to solve world hunger. Hannah, seriously? Becca's having a breakdown. Just let me go help her, and we can talk tonight. My heart hammered in my chest. There it was again, the hierarchy I had never agreed to, but had been forced to live under for years. I set my mug down. I accepted the Seattle position, I said. Silence. His fingers froze around his keys. He turned slowly, the color draining from his face. You what? I accepted the job, I repeated, voice steady. I start in 2 weeks. The silence that followed felt like someone had pressed pause on the world. Lucas stared at me, mouth open slightly. When? The day after they offered it. When? He demanded louder. When did you accept it, Hannah? I met his eyes. 3 weeks ago. His face twisted, shock, betrayal, then anger blazing behind his eyes. 3 weeks? You made a life-changing decision without telling me? Without even discussing it? I held up a hand. You didn't discuss your decisions with me when they involved Becca. You didn't ask how I felt when you left me home alone to take care of her emergencies. You didn't care how much it hurt every time she became more important than our plans. That's not the same, he started. It is, I said firmly, and you know it. Lucas shook his head. You're doing this to punish me. You're moving across the country to make a point. No, I said. I'm moving across the country because staying here has been killing me slowly. He stepped closer, voice tightening. You're forcing me to choose, Hannah, between you and Becca. I'm not forcing anything, I said. I'm just refusing to compete anymore. His jaw clenched. She needs me. And I needed you too, I whispered, but you weren't there. Something in my voice made him falter. Lucas, I continued, when I told you about the Seattle offer, your first concern wasn't about us. It was about her mental health, her stability, her support system, her needs. He swallowed hard. And when, I asked softly, did you ever think about mine? A beat of silence, heavy, raw. Then Lucas fired back, desperation lacing his words. What do you expect me to do? Abandon someone who depends on me? I let out a broken laugh. You already did abandon someone. You just didn't choose me. His face crumpled for a second, as if he finally saw it, but then his phone vibrated. Becca calling. He glanced at the screen. And that was it. That tiny reflexive movement told me everything I needed to know. I stepped back. Go ahead, answer it. He looked torn, troubled, but he still picked up. Becca? Hey, yeah, I'm coming. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course. When he hung up, he tried to backpedal. She's really having a hard time. You caught me off guard with this Seattle thing. Just let me help her right now, and... No, I cut in sharply. Go, help her, like you always do. His mouth opened, then closed. I forced my voice to stay steady. I'll be gone before you get back. Hannah, I'm not asking for your permission, I said. I'm telling you what's happening. He took a step towards me. You're being unreasonable. You're throwing away everything we built because you can't handle my friendship with my ex. I stared at him. Your friendship? Lucas, you've built your entire emotional life around her. You've made me secondary for years, and I kept hoping you'd see it. But you didn't, or you wouldn't. He shook his head again. So that's it? You're leaving? I held his gaze, heart hurting, but certain. I am. He blinked, stunned. Just like that? Not just like that, I whispered. It took 3 years. He looked lost, angry, scared, defensive, then finally snapped, Fine. Go to Seattle, but don't expect me to chase you. I nodded. I'm not. He grabbed his jacket and keys, storming toward the door. Before leaving, he glanced back once. A silent plea. A silent accusation. Then he left. The door clicked shut. Soft. Final. I stood in the quiet apartment, breathing in air that suddenly felt lighter. Then I moved. Hours later, half my things were packed. Movers were scheduled. My one-way flight was booked. My apartment lease in Seattle was finalized. When Lucas returned that night, smelling faintly of someone else's perfume, something floral I didn't own, he stopped in the entryway and stared at the half-empty shelves. Hannah, he said hoarsely, please tell me this isn't real. I lifted my last box from the table. It's real. When he saw I wasn't bluffing, his expression collapsed in on itself. You're really leaving, he whispered. I am. He swallowed hard. With or without me? With or without you, I confirmed. The next morning before sunrise, I left Austin. I didn't tell Lucas what time my flight was. I didn't leave a note. I didn't look back. As the plane rose above the clouds, Austin shrinking beneath me, I felt a strange mixture of grief, freedom, and something else I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Seattle was waiting, and for the first time in years, my life would finally be mine again. Seattle greeted me with a cold drizzle, the kind that seeps into your clothes but also somehow clears your head. The city felt like a deep breath I hadn't realized I needed to take, fresh, wide, and mercifully distant from everything I had been drowning in. My new apartment was smaller than the one I shared with Lucas, but it had a view of the skyline glowing softly through the rain. For the first time in months, I slept without waking up to the sound of someone else's phone buzzing. My phone stayed quiet. Lucas didn't call, he didn't text, he didn't send an email or leave a voicemail. I told myself this was good. This was clean. This meant we were really done. And I focused on building my new life. My first week at work was a blur of onboarding meetings, architecture diagrams, and whiteboard sessions with my new team. The pace was intense, the expectations high, but the challenge made something inside me spark awake again. I felt like myself here. Not the version of me always adjusting, shrinking, accommodating. The version who once dreamt boldly. 3 weeks passed before everything shattered again. It began with a call from Chloe. I was standing outside my building waiting for an Uber, my tote bag slung over my shoulder, when my phone rang. I saw her name and smiled, until I heard the panic in her voice. "Hannah," she said, "are you sitting down?" My pulse jumped. "What's wrong?" "It's Lucas," she said, "and Becca." A sudden coldness ran through my body. "What about them?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Part of me had always known. Chloe hesitated. "Jake told me what happened. His girlfriend Madison was there for part of it. It's messy." My throat tightened. "Just tell me." "Hannah, the week you left, Becca showed up at Lucas's place with dinner and wine. She started pouring her heart out, told him she'd always hoped they'd get back together, that she only moved to Austin because of him, that all her crises were because she was miserable without him." I closed my eyes. "Of course." "And Lucas?" I whispered. "They slept together. The world didn't explode, it didn't collapse, it just stilled. Like everything inside me had gone perfectly silent." Chloe kept talking, her voice thick with sympathy. "I'm so sorry, hon. It happened the same weekend you moved." A dull ache bloomed in my chest. Not sharp, not surprising, just confirmation. A truth I had subconsciously braced for, even when I tried to believe better. I thanked Chloe, hung up, and stood frozen on the sidewalk while rain misted down around me. Lucas hadn't just chosen Becca over me for years. The moment I left, he chose her again. Physically, emotionally, completely. That night I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat by the window as the city lights flickered, letting the numbness settle in. 2 days later, Lucas called. The second his name appeared on my screen, my stomach twisted. I nearly let it ring out. But a part of me, stupid, human, hungry for closure, answered. His voice was wrecked, raw, shaking. "Hannah," he said, "I need to tell you something." "I already know," I said quietly. A breath hitched through the phone. "Madison told you." "She did." Silence spun out between us. Then Lucas exhaled, long and broken. "I made a mistake, a huge one. Becca came over that night, and I was lost. You had left, and she said things that messed with my head, and I—" "You slept with your ex," I finished for him. He winced audibly. "I thought you were done with me. You left without a goodbye. It felt like abandonment, and Becca, she manipulated you," I said. "She has been manipulating you for years." "I know," he said desperately. "I finally see it. After that night, she acted like we were back together. She told me moving to Seattle was proof you didn't love me. She started talking about us as a couple again. And when I told her I didn't want that, she lost it." He sucked in a shaky breath. "Hannah, she told people awful things. Said you were controlling. Said I was emotionally abused. She tried to isolate me from everyone. I didn't see it until it was too late." My heart stung, not with longing, but with grief for the girl I used to be. The girl who fought for him while he never fought for her. "Lucas," I said gently, "why are you telling me all this?" "Because I want to fix things," he said, voice cracking. "I want to come to Seattle. I want to prove I can be different. I already put in my notice at work. I'll get an apartment there. I'll give you space. Please, Hannah, give me a chance to make this right." I leaned my forehead against the window pane, Seattle's lights blurring through the glass. "Lucas," I whispered, "you didn't just choose her once. You chose her every time you left me alone to go save her. Every time you dismissed my feelings. Every time you ignored the damage it did to us. I know, he said softly, and I'm sorry. The apology was real. I could hear it, but it wasn't enough. Lucas, I said, you slept with her the week I left. A small, wounded sound left his throat. I regret it every day. I'm sure you do, I said, but regret doesn't rebuild trust. He was quiet for a long time. Then he whispered, I'm in Seattle. My breath caught. What? I flew here this morning, he said. I'm outside your building. My chest tightened painfully. I moved to the window, pulled the curtain aside, and froze. There he was, standing on the sidewalk in the rain, soaked, shivering, 2 suitcases by his feet. A man who finally chose, but far, far too late. When I opened the door downstairs, Lucas stepped forward, face pale, eyes swollen like he hadn't slept. Hannah, he whispered, I'm here. I'm ready. I'll do anything. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt something unexpected wash over me. Not anger, not longing, not hope. Just clarity. Lucas, I said softly, the man I loved wouldn't have needed to lose me and sleep with his ex to realize he wanted me. He flinched as though I'd hit him. I'm sorry, I said, voice steady, but we're not going back. His face crumpled. And for the first time in years, I didn't crumble with him. I walked away, closed the door gently behind me, and let myself breathe. Lucas didn't leave Seattle right away. Part of me had expected he would, expected him to pack his bags, book the first flight home, and disappear into the shadow of what we used to be. But he didn't. He found a small, furnished, month-to-month rental only a few blocks away from my building and told me he wanted to give me space, but stay close enough to prove he meant what he said. I didn't encourage it. I didn't sabotage it. I simply let it be. He texted occasionally, short, steady, hopeful things. I'm starting therapy. I'm applying to jobs. I hope your week is going well. There was no grand begging, no theatrics, just a quiet remorse that made it painfully clear Lucas had finally woken up, just not in time to save us. We got coffee twice. Neutral ground, public space, safe distance. He looked different in Seattle, more contained, more thoughtful, like life had finally forced him to sit with the consequences of choices he'd always avoided examining. I didn't realize how much of myself I gave away, he said during one of those coffees. To Becca, to guilt, to the need to be everyone's hero. I didn't realize how much of you I was losing in the process. I stirred my latte slowly. I know. He studied my face, searching for something. A crack, an opening. Hope. Hannah, he whispered, I love you. I know that now more than ever. Is there really no chance for us? There was a time, 3 months ago, 3 years ago, maybe 3 heartaches ago, when that sentence would have broken me open, when I would have clung to it, begged for it, believed it. But now, I felt steady. You loved me, I said gently, but you didn't choose me when it mattered. Love isn't a feeling, Lucas, it's a priority. His eyes closed, pain flickering across his face. And I don't trust you, I continued softly. I'm not sure I ever really could, not the way I needed to, not after everything. He nodded, slowly, resigned. I understand. Strangely, we hugged afterward, quietly, carefully, like 2 people saying goodbye to a version of themselves they'd outgrown. A week later, Lucas flew back to Austin. He didn't tell me until he landed. Thank you for letting me try. I hope you find everything here that you couldn't find with me. I cried then, not because I wanted him back, but because it was the kind of goodbye we never had the courage to give each other when we were together. Meanwhile, in Austin, Becca did not handle the fallout gracefully. Word travels fast in tech circles, faster in startup circles, and at hyperspeed when drama is involved. Once people pieced together the timeline, Becca's constant emergencies, her manipulation of Lucas, her attempt to rekindle their relationship the moment I left, her reputation unraveled almost overnight. Chloe told me later, she burned bridges everywhere, Han. People figured out she used her anxiety attacks to pull him away from you. Even her manager said she weaponized emotional crises to avoid accountability at work. Lucas avoided her completely. Their mutual friends quietly drifted from her. Her fragile, dependent mask cracked wide open. Justice didn't always arrive loudly, but this time it arrived cleanly. As for me, Seattle became home faster than I ever expected. I settled into my new role, leading the cloud infrastructure migration team. Long days, longer nights, but fulfilling in a way I hadn't felt in years. My coworkers became friends, real friends, the kind who didn't require me to shrink myself so they felt secure. I bought a condo, Small, sunlit, with huge windows facing the mountains. Every evening, the sky streaked pink and gold against the Pacific Northwest horizon, reminding me of why I came here, of why I stayed. 2 months after Lucas left, I met someone new. Eli, 26, a UX designer at Amazon. We met at a climbing gym in Fremont after I slipped and nearly elbowed him in the jaw. He made a joke about it. 10-10 form, 0-10 aim. And somehow that turned into an hour-long conversation about hiking trails, minimalist design, and the best ramen spots in Seattle. Being with Eli was easy. Not perfect, not a fairy tale, just quietly safe. He didn't treat me like an afterthought. He didn't juggle relationships like spinning plates. He didn't need saving. And he never made me compete with ghosts from his past. Our first real date was a hike in the Cascades. At the summit, wind whipping our hair, he looked at me and said, "I like how you take up space. Most people apologize for it. You don't." I almost laughed. Once upon a time, taking up space felt like a crime I kept being punished for. With Eli, it felt like breathing. We made plans for Iceland next summer. He sends me memes at 2 a.m. because he knows I'm a night owl. He asks, "Do you have the emotional capacity to hear something stressful?" Before venting about his day. He respects boundaries I didn't even realize I had the right to ask for. It's different, not perfect, but healthy. And that feels like a miracle. 4 months after everything ended, I was watching the sunset bleed over the Seattle skyline when my phone buzzed with a notification. A message from Lucas. "I saw your company in the news. Huge milestone. I'm proud of you. Truly. I hope you're happy." I sat with it for a moment, letting the weight of everything settle. Then I typed back, "Thank you. I hope you're doing well." Nothing more, nothing less. A clean ending to a messy story. I put my phone down, leaned against the balcony railing, and breathed in the cool Washington air. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for someone to choose me. I had already chosen myself, and the life unfolding before me, messy, new, full of possibility, felt exactly right.